Hello everybody, and welcome back to another weekly recap. In the weekly recap, I like to go over any news related to the old school RuneScape community this week. Now this week we did get a content update, more stuff from poll number 71, as well as a few tweaks to the Darkmeyer update. Mostly smaller changes and quality of life changes, but still a lot of good stuff here. On top of that, this week we had a few really amazing achievements, a Runelight update, as well as a weekly Q&A that we're going to be doing a quick recap of. So we have a lot to talk about. If you guys enjoy the weekly recap, I would really appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel, turn those notifications on. I'd be forever in your debt. Anyway guys, let's get started. Now to begin with here, let's have a look at today's content update, which was named poll number 71 and Darkmeyer updates. Now I believe this is actually the last batch of changes from poll number 71, so this is going to be it. Now first up here we have a few more recolors, specifically the Rocky Pet, which I am pretty excited about because I do have that one on another account. There is now 2 transformation options. They can turn into either a red panda or a tanuki. You can either feed him red berries or poison ivy berries. To change him back into a trash panda, you'll need to feed him white berries. And now the final change for the Chambers of Xeric is actually a toggleable health bar for Tecton, Vespula, Mudded Isles, Vanguards, Vasa, or the Great Olm. Also, they ended up resetting a few challenge mode records as they were obtained illegitimately. Now one complaint a lot of people had was with the new Wilderness Slayer assignments, some of them are pretty much non-existent in the Wilderness. Those 2 were mainly Bloodvelds and Black Knights. For both of them there was only 2 before, but they've had their spawn increased to 7 for Black Knights and 5 for Bloodvelds, which still doesn't seem like a very good task, but it's still better than it was before. Okay, it's now possible to own both the Ram Skull and the Bone Sack from Reg and Bone Man 2. I mean, you definitely earn it because Reg and Bone Man 2 is like the worst quest in the entire game. Now they've decided to add the bag full of gems and the soft clay packs actually to the Mining Guild Mineral Exchange Shop. Instead of paying gold nuggets, you're going to be paying with unidentified minerals. A soft clay pack is going to be 10 unidentified minerals. A bag full of gems is going to be 20. And now there's a few other changes here that still haven't come through, mainly the Gauntlet changes and the Grotesque Guardian changes. I guess those are going to be coming over the next couple of weeks still. The Gauntlet changes are definitely still in testing. They don't mention the Gargoyle boss though at all. And that's it for poll number 71. Next up here we have some changes to Darkmeyer and the Hallowed Sepulcher. Now for the most part, the changes this week are just bug fixes, very minor things. They didn't actually change the base experience rate at all. Now the notable changes are now all of the treasure rooms or all the treasure encounters will award a very small amount of agility experience, which probably won't add too much to your XP per hour, but it will be something. So you're going to get a token amount of agility twice every time you go for one of the encounters. Now on top of the minor bug fixes that are bound to speed up the Sepulcher, they've also changed how some of the items work. For example, the Hallowed Grapple now has a 100% success rate, which is good because falling in that pit definitely slows you down a lot. If you have the Hallowed Symbol, you'll now go through the Prayer Barrier a bit quicker. So that's good because that's the main one I do. Same thing for the Hallowed Hammer, now has a 100% chance to not bend a nail, regardless of the plank and nail combination, which means you're now just probably going to want to use the lowest tier possible. On top of that, the bridge for the construction encounter is now traveled much quicker. That historically was the slowest one. And on top of that, you're going to get slightly more experience for doing the encounters. You're going to get 200 magic experience for enchanting the portal, 200 for sacrificing the dust, and that's pretty much it for the Hallowed Sepulcher changes. Now for the rest of Darkmeyer, there are mainly just 2 small changes here. First, the chance of pickpocketing Vires have been actually made easier. At 99 Thieving, they've increased the success rate to 50%. Previously, it was 40%, so a pretty notable increase there. On top of that, there's a very minor change to the Dayalt Mine. The mineable area will now switch a bit slower, which should increase the experience ever so slightly. And that is pretty much it for Darkmeyer changes. Now they have a bit of a section here stating why they pretty much didn't increase the experience rate yet. And it pretty much comes down to there seems to be 2 types of people who are complaining about the content. Some people think the experience rates at the top end are too high, and some people think the opposite. And the way the Jagex moderators are balancing it apparently is they're balancing it around the above average player. So if the hypothetical Tomb Raider makes a few mistakes but never runs out of time, only collects treasure on the most valuable floors, they're going to get a balanced amount of both experience and treasure. And I'm assuming what they mean there is that would be the proposed experience rate. However, if you are a truly skilled player, you're mastered the Sepulcher, They don't mind you getting even better experience rates than what have been pulled. Now the priority this week has been to fix any bugs, but they're still monitoring it and are most likely going to make a few more changes in the future. Now the only interesting thing in the other news section here is that players are now actually able to train agility, thieving, construction, and prayer in the hallowed sepulcher on Deadman worlds. Still can't train magic experience, but I thought that was kind of interesting. Anyway, that is it for today's game update. Now one kind of interesting thing that has been happening over the last couple of weeks is players have been receiving a ton of password reset requests that they didn't make themselves. I know what's kind of unique here is it doesn't seem like these are actually phishing attempts. These are legitimate password reset emails. With that said though, I would highly recommend not clicking on any password reset email you get unless you explicitly have done it yourself. Now what seems to be happening is players who still have a username login instead of an email login are getting these requests. Either somehow they got leaked or otherwise they're just trying every possible username, but all the information they seem to have is actually the username, which isn't that useful. Like for example, a friend pointed out that anyone could send him a password reset email because most people know his username, but it doesn't do much good because the email is locked and they never be able to get it reset. With that said though, it looks like Jagex is looking into it. A database breach would be a little bit concerning, but we don't know that yet. Now on top of that, we did get a Runelight update today. One thing that I knew I immediately wanted was the loot tracker to be updated with the hallowed sepulcher, and that is coming in today's update. So the loot tracker will now track any of the chests that you open throughout the sepulcher, as well as they've now started storing the completion counts and personal bests, and you can access that by doing !KCHS or PBHS. Now this week there was actually a few amazing achievements and notable community contributions. For example, yesterday Exact managed to set the new record for the lowest level Inferno at Combat 40. Somebody in my clan mentioned that they were going for it live and they were almost done with Zuck, and it was really close. So I went to go log into Twitch. They were like 30 seconds away from killing it, and of course an ad loads up and I don't even get to see it. Again, congrats to Exact, that's insane. Now on top of that, a player by the name of JCW managed to max a skilling account, and I mean max, like 200 mil in every single non-combat skill. Very impressive. That must have taken a long time to complete, considering the combat skills are some of the quicker ones normally. Another awesome thing in the community that happened this week is Foe purposely lost his hardcore Ironman status for charity after raising over $50,000 US, which is really impressive. That's an awesome thing to do and really just a legendary way to lose your hardcore. And finally here, the very first person to ever get an uncut onyx from a gem bag happened this week. So congrats to any Uni being the very first person to achieve this. Insanely rare and barely anyone opens gem bags, so yeah, congrats. Okay, and finally here, I want to do a quick recap of this week's Q&A. First here, I really want to say thank you to whomever put timestamps in this recent YouTube video. You are a gem and a treasure, thank you very much. That probably saved me half the time. Okay, first up here, is it true that the Ring of Endurance is only available on floor number 5? Yes, it's true, and they don't have any intention of changing it to floors 3 or 4, as it would impact the value of the item, and it's much more challenging to make it to floor 5 in time and loot than it is the other floors. Are you considering a potential buff to the Blood Shard? They were pretty explicit about this one actually. Yes, they're discussing internally pulling a buff for the Blood Shard, as well as actually a buff to the normal drop table for the vampires, so they are most likely looking to make everything about that stronger. Could you make the Dark Graceful set darker? While they're not unhappy with how it looks now, if it is possible, they do want to make it darker. Are you planning on making any changes to the Jar of Darkness drop rate? So there's a bit of a differentiating opinion here. Some of the moderators think that it may have been a bit of an oversight. Modrock says it was intentional, but I think it's 1 to the 2500 from Skatizo, which you can't kill very frequently, so it's probably the rarest jar in the entire game. Are you planning on making any changes to the Thamron Scepter, possibly adding in an automatic spell so you don't have to take runes with you? They would like to make some changes to the Scepter, and adding in an automatic spell like the Iban Staff would be a good change for it. Is there any plans to buff the Torag's Hammers? No, there's no plans yet. They're not really sure what they would change about them, so it's not a high priority. What's the deal with the hard mode Inferno? Is there any work being done on it? Now, there's nothing being worked on the Inferno right now. They like the idea of it. Now, the reason that this has come up a few times now is there was a very minor dialogue change for completing the Inferno that now states, we're done with you for now. indicating that something may come after that. And just based on the way they said it, it seems like something may be in the works here. Are you ever planning on buffing Wilderness Slayer again? Not currently. Maybe after the Enclave is added or the PvP vision is changed, they may revisit Wilderness Slayer. But for now, they're just going to make the minor change in this week's update. Have you ever considered a shard share or a coin share system for old school RuneScape? Yes, they have considered it. They pulled it twice and it did fail, so they're not sure if they're going to try pulling that again. Would you consider buffing the Dragon Bone and the Dragon Crusher necklace to have at least the stats of an Amulet of Glory? They don't really see an issue with doing that. However, they're still not sure if that would be strong enough to warrant people using it. Probably couldn't hurt though. When are we going to be getting the Gauntlet changes? Most likely next week, but possibly the week after. And that is pretty much it for the Q&A this week, and that is it for the weekly recap. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, I always appreciate it if you leave the video a like, and I'll see you next week.